My name is Jenna Hollis, married to one of the most influential men in Seattle, and tonight was supposed to be an unforgettable night. Colin's company was celebrating its 10-year anniversary, and every spouse was invited. Colin insisted I come. "You'll finally see how far we've come," he'd said that morning, kissing my cheek like everything was fine. I walked into the ballroom, ready to be proud of him, ready to stand at his side, ready to feel, just for once, like he saw me. Instead, I froze, because standing next to him at the front of the room, her hand on his arm, her smile bright enough for every camera, was her, Sierra Lorne, the junior publicist, 24, always hovering near him in photos, always laughing a little too loudly at his jokes. The same woman he once described as a kid who needs guidance. She was wearing the diamond necklace I thought I'd misplaced last month. I felt my stomach drop. The music kept playing, people kept mingling, servers moved around with trays, but the air shifted around me. It felt like someone had pulled the floor a few inches out from under my feet. Colin didn't see me at first. He was too busy introducing Sierra to the investors. "She's been my rock through these intense travel months," he said, his voice carrying across the microphone. "I wouldn't have made it without her." The crowd applauded. Sierra leaned her head slightly on his shoulder, as if claiming her territory. My hands started to tremble. A woman beside me whispered to her husband, not nearly quietly enough, "Isn't he married?" "Yes," the man murmured back. "His wife is right." Oh no. And then their eyes met mine with the kind of pity I've always hated. That was the moment he finally turned and saw me. His face went pale first, then pink, then stiff with annoyance, the way it always did when something interrupted his carefully crafted image. "Jenna," he said, stepping away from Sierra but not nearly fast enough. "You're early." "I'm on time," I replied. My voice came out steady, but inside my chest felt like someone had struck it with a hammer. Sierra blinked at me, confused for a split second, then glanced at Colin for guidance. The guests around us were already murmuring, forming a loose half-circle as if the unfolding disaster was part of the evening program. One of Colin's colleagues tried to speak, to introduce me discreetly, but I stepped forward before he could intervene. "That's a beautiful necklace," I said, looking directly at Sierra. "It looks familiar." Her hand flew to her chest. Colin exhaled sharply. "This isn't the place," he whispered harshly, but the microphone was still in his hand, and the whisper carried enough that the closest people heard it. Not the place. He'd brought her to his company's biggest night of the year. He'd brought her wearing my jewelry. And he thought this wasn't the place? Maybe I should have walked away quietly. Maybe I should have waited for a private conversation. But something inside me cracked. Something I'd held together for years. So I asked, loudly enough for it to cut through the music, "Did you take her on your so-called business trip last month?" A gasp rippled across the room. Sierra's eyes widened. Colin's jaw tightened. Cameras lifted subtly, not phones, but those discreet event photographers hired to capture candid moments. Oh, they were capturing one now. Colin stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're making a scene." "No," I said. "You made the scene. I'm just standing in it." He glanced toward the stage where the CEO and several board members were watching with frozen expressions. He cleared his throat and turned to the audience. "Everyone, I think we should give Jenna some space. She's not feeling well." "Oh, I feel fine," I cut in. My voice was sharp enough to slice through the room. "I feel perfectly clear." Sierra finally spoke. I didn't know." "Yes, you did," I said, not breaking eye contact with Colin. "You both did." A woman near the bar muttered, "This is awful." But she didn't look away. No one did. People love a public disaster as long as they're not the one burning in it. Colin reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "Don't touch me," I said, quietly but firmly. "Not tonight." He finally let his mask slip just enough for me to see the irritation beneath it. Not guilt, not remorse. Irritation. because I was ruining his moment. Something inside me hardened. I lifted my chin and turned toward the stage mic, the one he'd used to praise Sierra. I stepped forward. A few people tried to stop me. Soft gasps, a hand reaching out, but no one moved fast enough. I spoke into it. "Good evening," I said. My voice echoed across the ballroom. "I'm Jenna Hollis, Colin's wife." A hush fell so fast it felt physical. "And I just want to thank everyone here," I continued, steady, calm, unshaking. "Because tonight, in front of all of you, I learned exactly who my husband has been spending his business trips with." Someone gasped. Someone else covered their mouth. The CEO looked like he might faint. Colin stepped forward, trying to grab the mic, but a board member subtly blocked him. People weren't siding with him. They were watching me. "Congratulations, Colin," I said. "At least now everyone finally sees the truth, including me." I set the microphone down gently. No drama, no yelling, just clarity. Then I turned, walked past Sierra, who looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her, and headed toward the exit. My legs were shaking so badly I thought I might collapse, but I didn't stop. Not once. Behind me, I heard Colin say my name, then louder, then sharper. But the doors were already swinging shut behind me when I whispered the words that would anchor everything that came next. "This ends tonight." And so does he. I didn't look back. I walked out of that ballroom with nothing but my purse and the last pieces of who I used to be. And I promised myself one thing as I stepped into the cold Seattle air. If he wanted a woman who should feel lucky to be chosen, then he was about to see what it felt like to lose the one who made him. When I walked out of that ballroom, the cold air hit harder than the humiliation. But the deeper ache wasn't from what happened tonight. It came from everything that led to it. Colin and I met 11 years ago, back when we were both still living in small apartments with peeling paint and big dreams. I was already climbing the ladder at my company, working long hours, taking certifications at night. Colin was trying to get his travel tech idea off the ground, but investors weren't biting. He'd come home exhausted, defeated, saying things like, "Maybe I'm not cut out for this." I would pull him back up every time. I paid most of our bills the first 5 years. I covered groceries, the car, even part of his early business expenses. When my mother passed and I inherited her lake cabin, I kept it as our backup plan, a place we could restore someday, something I thought we'd build together. I never imagined how valuable it would become or how much I'd cling to it later. When we bought our house, I used nearly my entire inheritance for the down payment. Colin promised he'd pay it back when the startup hit big. He made a lot of promises back then, and I believed them because I loved him. The years that followed were filled with the kind of sacrifices people don't see. I scaled back from a management track job to something more stable when our daughter Maya was born, just so Colin could travel for his opportunities. I handled everything at home: school pickups, late-night fevers, grocery runs, while he chased deals across conferences. He used to say, "We're a team." Somewhere along the way, that turned into, "You should feel lucky someone ambitious chose you." I laughed it off the first time, then the second. By the 10th, the laughter had dried up. There were warning signs, of course: the constant password changes, the sudden late-night client calls, the way he started dressing differently, talking differently, acting like the world owed him attention. He became someone I didn't recognize: competitive, polished, hungry for validation. I told myself it was just stress, that once his company stabilized, he'd come back home emotionally, not just physically. Then came the business trip last month, the one he said was absolutely mandatory. He returned distant, distracted, protective of his phone, as if Maya might steal it and leak corporate secrets. I still tried to believe him. Tonight destroyed whatever denial was left. When I got home after the gala, Maya was still awake, sitting on the couch with her tablet. She looked at me with those wide, soft eyes that always cut straight through me. She put the tablet down slowly. "Mom, I saw something." Her voice trembled. Dad posted a picture last week. He deleted it fast, but I saw a girl in it. I didn't want to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. My breath caught. I didn't need any more confirmation. Colin hadn't just betrayed me publicly. He'd betrayed our daughter privately. And that was the moment everything inside me went silent. Not broken, just still. Because betrayal I could process. But hurting Maya? That was unforgivable. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the edge of my bed, still in the dress I wore to the gala, staring at the wall until the sky began to lighten outside. Something inside me had shifted. Not shattered. Shifted. The part of me that had spent years cushioning Colin's failures and smoothing his ego had finally gone quiet. What replaced it was focus. By sunrise, I had a plan. I started with the accounts. Every card, every login, every joint asset. I moved methodically, like someone performing a delicate procedure. I transferred my paycheck into a separate account I'd opened years ago and barely used. I froze the joint credit line he relied on for his business meals. I disabled the overdraft protection he'd always assumed would catch him. It felt strangely calm, like I had stepped out of the chaos and into clarity. Next, I called my attorney, the one I'd spoken to once 2 years earlier when Colin's behavior first started changing. Back then, I never followed through. Today, her voice was the most grounding sound I'd heard in months. "Jenna, I'm glad you called," she said gently. "Tell me what happened." I told her everything. The gala, the necklace, the photo Maya had seen. She didn't interrupt, not once. When I finished, she said, "We'll move quickly. You have leverage, more than you think." We mapped out the first steps. Secure financial control. Gather documentation. Protect Maya's stability. Initiate temporary separation procedures. She told me what to photograph, what to copy, what to pull from the file cabinet Colin thought I never checked. I followed her instructions like clockwork. Every keystroke felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. By mid-morning, I was packing. Not running away, repositioning. I packed my essentials, Maya's school things, and a week's worth of clothes. The rest could wait. I left Colin's side of the closet untouched, the way you'd leave a museum exhibit behind glass. Maya watched me quietly from her bedroom doorway. "Are we leaving?" she asked. "For a little while," I said. "Just until things settle." She nodded, trusting me completely. That trust became the fuel I needed. I drove us to the lake cabin, my mother's place. My place. The one thing Colin never fully understood because he never took the time to. The air smelled like pine and cold water. Maya immediately ran to the dock, her laughter carrying across the lake. I stood there watching her, feeling something inside me anchor for the first time in years. My phone started ringing. Colin. Then again. And again. I didn't answer. Instead, I logged into the property management portal for our house. Colin always talked about refinancing or upgrading, but never actually handled the paperwork. I did, which meant my name was on everything important. I initiated a temporary lockout on new transactions and flagged several withdrawals for review. If he tried to move money today, he'd hit a brick wall. By the time the sun started to set over the lake, the calls shifted from confident to frantic. His texts followed the usual pattern: annoyance, questioning, then the attempt at charm, and finally the sharp tone he used whenever he felt out of control. "Where are you? We need to talk. Why are the accounts frozen? Jenna, answer me now." I stared at the screen, emotionless. For the first time in our entire marriage, I realized something simple. He was the one reacting. I was the one moving. And he had no idea what was coming next. I placed the phone face down on the table and exhaled slowly, a quiet promise forming in my mind. If he thought the gala was inconvenient for him, he hadn't felt consequences yet. By the next morning, the consequences had already begun to ripple outward, faster than even I expected. Colin called 6 times before 8 a.m. The 7th call went straight to voicemail, not because I declined it, but because the bank had finally flagged his attempted charges. I knew the pattern. First a declined card at a coffee shop, then another at a rideshare app, then a failed tap at his office's lobby cafe. He would be standing there now, staring at his phone, wondering how the world had tilted overnight. I didn't answer. Instead, I poured Maya's oatmeal into a bowl and packed her backpack. She sat at the small wooden table in the cabin kitchen, legs swinging, unaware of the storm brewing several miles away. "Are we staying here all week?" she asked. "A few days," I said, "just until I organize some things." "Okay," she smiled softly. "Children can sense tension, but they trust consistency more." I gave her that. By the time I drove her to her day camp in town, my phone buzzed again, this time with a message from one of Colin's coworkers. "Are you okay? Do you know what's going on?" I exhaled. The Gala fallout had officially begun. While Maya was inside, I sat in the car, scrolling through the messages. Several colleagues from my job had reached out too, not prying, just gentle concern. I didn't answer them yet. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because the air still felt too raw to let anyone into it. My attorney texted next. "He will likely attempt to withdraw large funds. Proceed as discussed. Call me this afternoon." I typed back, "Understood." By noon, the real shockwave hit. A mutual friend, Tessa, one of the few people I trusted, called me in a whispering panic. "Jenna, it's bad. Someone from the Gala posted a video. Not the whole thing. Just the moment you took the mic. People are sharing it." My heart skipped. "It's circulating on private group chats," she continued. Colin looked stunned. "Everyone's talking about Sierra. No one at the company can figure out why he brought her." A faint breeze moved through the cabin's open window as I listened. The world wasn't small anymore. It was connected, immediate, merciless. And Colin's perfect image had finally cracked. "What about him?" I asked. Tessa hesitated. "He came into the office late. He looked shaken. People overheard him arguing with someone on the phone. The CEO asked him to step out of the boardroom, and I heard Sierra didn't come in today." That part wasn't surprising. Mistresses don't usually enjoy day-after gossip. After I hung up, I paced the cabin's small living room. The wooden floors creaked under my steps, grounding me more than any deep breath ever could. For years, I'd felt powerless, confused, overwhelmed by Colin's shifts in personality. But today, the balance was different. He was scrambling. I was steady. Around 3 p.m., he texted again. "Where are you taking Maya? This isn't okay. We need to talk like adults." I didn't reply. 10 minutes later. "Did you freeze the cards? I can't pay for anything. This is childish." Then, "Answer me. Right now." His anger used to make me shrink. Now it made me certain. I set the phone down, grabbed my keys, and drove to pick up Maya. She ran to me with paint on her hands, smiling. "Mom, we made ocean pictures today." I lifted her into a hug. "That sounds beautiful." On the drive back, my phone buzzed continuously, not calls, but notifications. Someone had added me to a private message thread, screenshots from the Gala, whispers about Colin, people wondering whether the junior publicist rumor was real. By evening, Colin finally switched tactics. "I'm coming to the house. We need to talk. Please don't make this worse." That last sentence, "don't make this worse," revealed everything. He still thought this was a momentary embarrassment. A small mess he could clean up with charm and excuses. He didn't understand that I was already gone, not just physically, emotionally, mentally, structurally. And when he pulled into the driveway of our home an hour later, he found the new security code already set, the locks temporarily disabled to outside access except mine. His next message came sharp, clipped, frantic. "What did you do?" "Jenna, open the door." I looked at my phone for a long moment before placing it face down on the table, because this was only the first wave, and he had no idea how many more were coming. Colin finally stopped texting the next morning, not because he'd calmed down, but because he'd shifted strategies, the way he always did when control started slipping through his hands. At 9:12 a.m., he sent one message that made it clear the next move was coming. Let's meet in person. Today. I made a reservation at Ridgeview Bistro. Noon. We need to fix this. Ridgeview. The same restaurant where he had once celebrated my promotion by giving me flowers he forgot to remove the grocery store sticker from. The same restaurant where he'd met investors for years. A place he assumed still held power over me. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My attorney had already advised me. If he wants a meeting, go. Public settings are safer. And you stay calm. You let him talk. He will reveal more than he intends. So I went. At 11:58, I walked through the doors of Ridgeview. The smell of roasted garlic and polished wood washing over me like a memory I no longer belonged to. People were already whispering at the tables near the entrance, not loudly, but loud enough. The video from the gala had spread farther than I expected. Colin stood near the back, wearing the confidence he'd lost over the last 48 hours. He straightened when he saw me, relief flashing across his face before frustration settled in again. You look tired, he said, as if that were the opening line of a heartfelt reunion. I sat down without responding. He leaned forward. What you did at the gala was reckless. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed the company. I told the truth, I said. He exhaled, irritated. You didn't have to make it public. You made it public, I corrected him. Every part of it. A server stopped by, asked if I wanted water. I nodded. Colin didn't. He was too focused on trying to regain the upper hand. I'm trying to understand why you think freezing our accounts was even remotely reasonable. They're not our accounts anymore, I said quietly. Not after what you did. His jaw clenched. You're being emotional. No, I replied, meeting his eyes head on. I was emotional for years. This is clarity. He looked around quickly, noticing people glancing our way. The table behind us had gone strangely quiet. A couple to the left kept pretending to look at their menus while listening. Can we talk like adults? He muttered. Without an audience? You invited the audience, I reminded him. You picked a public place. He pushed his hands through his hair, annoyed. Fine. I made mistakes. I shouldn't have brought Sierra to the gala. I get it. It was poorly timed. Poorly timed? I repeated, my voice low. That's how you describe taking another woman as your date while wearing the necklace you stole from my drawer? He froze. There it was. The first real crack. The restaurant felt smaller suddenly, tighter, the air shifting as people leaned in. Jenna, he said, his voice strained. Don't do this. You already did it, I said. And I'm done protecting you from consequences. He swallowed hard. His bravado faltered. Look, Sierra didn't mean anything. It wasn't... It's complicated. Then let me simplify it for you. I pulled out my phone, opened a file, and placed it on the table. It contained screenshots of his text messages with Sierra from the business trip, the ones Maya had accidentally seen fragments of before he deleted them. Colin's face went white. Where did you get that? He whispered. Your cloud backup, I said simply. You never turned off syncing. A gasp came from a nearby table. Someone dropped a fork. Colin reached for the phone, but I slid it back. His voice lowered to a ragged edge. Jenna, stop. Please. That trip was supposed to be for your strategic retreat, I said. Instead, you were at a seaside hotel, calling her your partner. A woman 2 tables away audibly inhaled. Word was spreading through the room like a current. Colin's composure broke. Do you want to destroy me? No, I said, standing slowly. You already destroyed what mattered. I'm just done standing in the ruins with you. He grabbed the edge of the table as if steadying himself. Jenna, please. We can work this out. I looked down at him. The man who once cried on my shoulder after every failed investor meeting. The man I built a home with. The man who erased me one selfish decision at a time. No, I said, calm and final. You made your choice at the gala. And today, everyone here saw the truth of it. I picked up my purse and turned to leave, and that's when it happened. A server, trying to move around him, bumped a glass. It tipped, spilling water across Colin's lap. He shot up in shock, gasping. Someone in the back laughed quietly. Someone else whispered, "Karma." Colin's face burned red, his clothes dripping. He looked at me with something between desperation and disbelief. "This isn't fair," he said. I held his gaze. Fair ended a long time ago. I walked out of Ridgeview with my head high, the weight on my chest lifting inch by inch. Behind me, the murmurs grew. People recording, people whispering, people seeing him clearly for the first time. The second humiliation was complete. And he knew, really knew, that I was just getting started. By the next morning, Ridgeview had become its own small legend. I didn't need to search for it. Clips found me. A coworker sent a message saying, "You're trending on private LinkedIn threads. People can't believe how calm you were." Another text came from a neighbor. "Is everything okay? I saw the restaurant video." I hadn't even realized someone recorded it, but of course they had. In a room full of investors, executives, and ambitious junior staff, silence was impossible. Someone always captured the moment. Meanwhile, Colin stayed quiet for almost a full day, which meant he was planning something. He resurfaced at 3:21 p.m. with a message I saw coming before it even appeared. "There's a story going around. We need to control the narrative. I'm setting up an internal statement." An internal statement. He still thought this was an image problem, not a betrayal problem. I didn't answer. At 5 p.m., he went public. A post appeared on his professional profile, one of those polished, corporate-toned declarations meant to sound responsible, but never actually say anything. "Tough week. My family is going through private matters, and unfortunately things were misinterpreted during our recent company event. Please respect our privacy as we work through misunderstandings." Misinterpretations. Misunderstandings. He was already spinning. Within minutes, sympathetic comments rolled in from people who didn't know me, praising his leadership during a difficult time. A few of his close colleagues commented things like, "Stay strong, Colin." I didn't need to reply. Someone else did it for me. An anonymous account posted the restaurant clip under his announcement. There it was, his denial, sitting directly next to the moment he begged me to stop, while half the restaurant watched. It spread quickly, private shares jumping from "seen by a few" to "seen by too many." He deleted his post within the hour. But it was too late. People had screenshots, and people love receipts. By evening, his name was quietly circulating on tech forums, not in a scandalous way, but in the professional, hushed tones of people analyzing executive judgment and conflicts of interest, whispered at first, then typed a little louder. The next day, the true escalation hit. A marketing assistant from his company, someone I'd never met, reached out to me privately. "You deserve to know this," she wrote. And then she attached 3 images. Pictures from the business trip. Pictures I'd never seen. Pictures someone on the company team must have taken. One was of Colin and Sierra in the hotel lobby, standing too close. Another was of them having dinner, candles flickering. The last one hurt the most, Sierra wearing one of Colin's jackets, the same one he claimed he'd forgotten in the closet that week. It wasn't just personal betrayal now. It was professional misconduct. Employees had noticed. Employees had talked. Employees had evidence. My attorney reviewed the photos immediately. Her exact words were, "This changes everything." That night, the real storm erupted. A trending tag appeared. Not nationwide, not explosive, but viral within the Seattle tech and marketing community. Rourke Retreat people used it sarcastically, posting screenshots, hotel reviews from the same location, jokes about junior mentorship programs, and memes about strategic partnerships. His company's HR department had to disable comments on several posts. Investors sent him emails demanding clarification. Someone leaked that Sierra had been quietly removed from the upcoming project roster. Meanwhile, Colin sent me another message. "Did you do this? Did you send the pictures?" I didn't respond, because I didn't have to. The world was reacting on its own. Sierra finally reappeared, only this time through someone else. A friend of hers posted a cryptic message. When you think someone will protect you and they throw you under the bus for their image. Lesson learned. People connected the dots immediately. Colin had tried to distance himself publicly, and Sierra was not taking the blame quietly. By the following morning, a journalist who specialized in workplace culture scandals contacted me. I declined her interview, but the very fact she reached out meant the PR war had crossed into new territory. Colin tried again. We can fix this together. This is becoming damaging. Please talk to me. 6 minutes later. If you don't respond, I'll have no choice but to make a formal statement. This is affecting my standing with the board. Standing with the board. That was what he cared about. Not Maya. Not our home. Not the truth. The final push came that afternoon, when someone leaked a time-stamped hotel receipt. His name, Sierra's room number, and 2 charges for the same dinner. At 4:44 p.m., he called me. I let it ring until it stopped. Because this wasn't a PR war anymore. It wasn't even revenge. It was exposure. And he was unraveling publicly, piece by piece. And for the first time since the gala, I felt something close to peace. Colin's unraveling didn't happen all at once. It came in waves, quiet, sharp, and unavoidable, each one pulling something else out from under him. By the time the legal process officially began, he was already standing on shaky ground. My attorney filed the initial petition at 7:42 a.m. on a Thursday. By 10 a.m., Colin had been served at his office. I saw the time-stamped photo the process server sent. Colin standing at the company reception desk, looking stunned, envelope still in his hand. His expression wasn't angry. It was fear. By noon, he was escorted out of the board meeting he had walked into confidently an hour earlier. They wanted answers. Not emotional ones, financial ones. About the receipts, the photos, the conflict of interest, the junior employee involved. The board didn't care about his excuses. They cared about liability. My attorney explained it plainly. Executives who create reputational risk are removed faster than the ones who fail numbers. By sunset, he was placed on temporary leave pending review. That same night, I sat at the cabin's kitchen table with documents spread out like a map of a life I once held together. My attorney walked me through each piece: the joint assets, the retirement contributions, the equity shares Colin always bragged about, the house I funded with my mother's inheritance. Your financial footing is stronger than his, she said. And in the court's eyes, you've been the stable parent for years. Maya was asleep in the next room, curled up with her stuffed dolphin. I could hear her soft breathing as I signed the first stack of forms. Colin texted as if nothing legal had happened. We should talk. I didn't think you'd actually file. Then, you're reacting. We can still fix this if we act together. Then, my lawyer said your attorney is being aggressive. Why are you doing this to me? As if I hadn't spent years holding everything together while he chased his potential. The next day, his father called me. I wasn't expecting it. He never involved himself in anything unless it directly affected the family's reputation. Jenna? He began, stiff and formal. Is it true? The pictures? The company mess? All of it? Yes, I said. Every part. He inhaled sharply. I warned him once. I told him not to mix personal decisions with professional responsibilities. Then, after a long pause, he added, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve this. It wasn't an apology for his son. It was an apology for witnessing the consequences. By the end of the call, he informed me that he would no longer be supporting Colin financially in any capacity. Not the townhouse he once paid for during the early startup years, not the emergency credit line he'd kept open for him. He closed everything. He needs to learn, he said simply. And it appears life is teaching him now. Colin's brother messaged me next. Just 2 words. I'm sorry. He didn't defend him. He didn't ask for details. He just acknowledged the truth. Sierra's collapse came shortly after. A contact from Colin's company messaged me discreetly. She requested a transfer. HR recommended she take a leave. And then came the message that sealed the fallout. She listed Colin as the reason. He had cost her reputation too. But she had walked into it willingly. That weekend, while Maya painted at the cabin's wooden picnic table, I received a final update from my attorney. Temporary custody arrangements approved. Financial freeze on disputed assets confirmed. House stays under your solo management until review. I set the phone down and exhaled. The lake was still. The world finally felt quiet. On Sunday evening, Colin sent a message unlike any of the others. No anger, no blame, no attempts at control. I lost my position. They said the board can't risk keeping me. I don't know where to go. Jenna, please, I'm running out of options. For a moment, I just looked at the screen. This was the man who once told me women like me should feel lucky. Lucky to have him. Lucky to be chosen. Lucky to stand beside him. Now he was standing alone, watching everything slip through his fingers. I turned the phone over, screen down, letting the message fade behind the wood grain of the table. He wasn't my responsibility anymore. His collapse wasn't my burden. This, finally, was just the truth catching up to him. And the truth was only beginning. I knew the final conversation was coming long before Colin asked for it. The tone of his messages had changed. Less demanding, less rehearsed, more fragmented. He had run out of excuses, run out of people willing to defend him, run out of places to hide. But I didn't expect him to ask to meet at the lake cabin. I just need 10 minutes, he wrote. Please. For years, I lived in a world where giving him 10 minutes meant hours of absorbing, explaining, smoothing, shrinking. Now, the ask landed differently. It felt like the last move on a chessboard where the outcome had already been decided. I agreed, but I didn't tell him we'd meet outside. I wasn't letting him inside my sanctuary. Just before sunset, I heard gravel crunching on the long driveway. The lake was a sheet of gold behind me, the air still and warm. Maya was inside painting. My neighbor, a retired teacher who often watched her, was already on alert in case things escalated. Colin stepped out of his car looking smaller somehow, shoulders slumped, eyes tired, clothes wrinkled, as if the weight of the last few weeks had finally settled into his posture. The wind lifted his hair, and for the first time since all of this began, he didn't straighten it or check his reflection. He just stood there. "Thank you for meeting me," he said quietly. I didn't respond. I waited. He walked closer, stopping a few feet away. "I know you don't owe me anything. I know that. But I need you to hear me." His voice cracked. Not dramatically, not theatrically, but from exhaustion. "I've lost everything," he continued. "The board officially removed me yesterday. My father cut off support. My brother doesn't answer my calls. Sierra—" He stopped himself, shaking his head. "It doesn't matter." He looked up at me with eyes that were no longer angry, no longer defensive, just empty. "I didn't think any of this would go this far," he said. "I thought it was just mistakes I could fix. But it's all falling apart." Silence stretched between us, long and heavy. I finally spoke. "Actions fall apart when they're built on lies." He exhaled shakily. "I know. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. I know I hurt Maya. I wasn't thinking. I was selfish. I don't know what I thought anymore." He rubbed his face with both hands. "You were right at the restaurant. You were right at the gala. I just didn't want to admit it." His voice broke again. "I don't have a home now. I'm staying in a rented room. I don't know how to start over. And I know you don't owe me compassion, but I'm standing here because I don't know where else to go." A breeze moved through the trees, rustling the leaves around us. For a moment, I let myself look at him. Not as the man who betrayed me, not as the man who humiliated me, but as the man I once waited up for, the man I once loved, the man I once believed in. And then I remembered Maya's frightened eyes when she told me about the photo. I remembered the necklace missing from my drawer. I remembered standing alone in a gala ballroom while he smiled with someone else on his arm. I remembered everything. "Colin," I said softly, "you're not here because you're sorry. You're here because you're sinking." His shoulders tensed. And you're hoping I'll pull you back up, because that's what I did for years." He looked at the ground, ashamed. "I know, and I'm not asking you to fix everything. I just need something. A chance to talk. Anything." I nodded slowly. "You had years of chances. You had my loyalty, my trust, my sacrifices, my silence, and you chose to bury all of that for attention that lasted 5 minutes." He flinched like the words stung physically. I took a breath, steady and final. "You want closure?" I asked. "Here it is." He lifted his head. "You lost your job because of your decisions. You lost your family because of your choices. You lost your reputation because of your behavior. And now you want me to offer you something to ease it." I shook my head. "But I'm done carrying what isn't mine." His lips parted, but no words came out. "This," I said, gesturing between us, "is the last conversation we will ever have about us." He swallowed hard. "So that's it?" "That's it." Another long silence. Finally he whispered, "What should I do now?" I looked at him evenly, not angry, not emotional, just resolved. "Whatever you do next," I said, "make sure it's something you can live with, because you're the one who has to live with yourself now." He stared at me, stunned. The lake reflected the fading sunlight behind us, turning the world a muted gold. I stepped back toward the cabin, and then I delivered the line that would stay with him longer than any revenge ever could. "You taught me what my life looks like without you. I'm choosing that life." I turned, walked away, and didn't look back. For the first time in years, he was the one watching me leave. And I was finally free. 6 months later, the lake looks different to me. Or maybe I'm different. The water isn't just a quiet escape anymore. It's a reminder of everything I rebuilt, piece by piece, once the chaos finally settled. The cabin is mine again. Truly mine. I spent the last months repairing what had gone untouched for years, fixing the cracked deck boards, repainting the kitchen, replacing the old curtains with soft linen ones that let in the morning light. Maya helped pick the colors, sea glass blue for her room and warm maple for the living space. She said the cabin finally feels alive. I do too. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago. Clean, quiet, efficient. Colin didn't fight anymore. There was nothing left to argue for. The job he'd once clung to dissolved under the weight of the investigation. His father held his line. His brother kept his distance. Even Sierra vanished from the narrative entirely. Last I heard, Colin was renting a modest 1-bedroom outside the city. No more corporate dinners, no travel card upgrades, no curated image. Just a small life he now had to navigate without someone rescuing him from his own decisions. And strangely, I don't feel bitterness about it anymore. I don't feel revenge burning in my chest. What I feel instead is distance, like watching a storyline from a life I've outgrown. Maya adjusted better than I expected. Children are resilient when they see stability, not chaos. On weekends, she runs along the dock in the morning sun, feeding ducks and laughing with the kind of joy I hadn't heard from her in years. She still asks about her dad sometimes, not with fear, not with sadness, just curiosity. I answer honestly, but simply. "He's figuring out his life," I tell her. And that's the truth. Meanwhile, I went back to my career with a clarity I never had before. I applied for a senior leadership program I once postponed for Colin's schedule. I got in. My team at work told me they'd never seen me so focused, so grounded, so sure. It turns out that when you stop pouring your energy into holding someone else together, you suddenly find you have enough to build something entirely new. The first time I drove past the old house after the divorce papers were signed, I didn't feel the sting I expected. Instead, it felt like passing a chapter marker, the kind you skim and nod at before turning the page. People sometimes think healing is loud, big speeches, dramatic declarations, public reinvention, but mine has been quiet. Small mornings on the lake, coffee on the deck, Maya's drawings taped to the cabin walls, the simple peace of knowing I'm no longer shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. A few days ago, while pruning the overgrown rosemary bush at the side of the house, I found something my mother had carved years ago, a small wooden plaque hidden behind the stems. The words were faded, but still legible. "Let life return to you gently." I stood there with the sunlight on my face, realizing that's exactly what had happened. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gently. One choice, one boundary, one step away from the chaos at a time. People sometimes ask if I ever miss the life I had with Colin. The answer is simple. I miss the version of myself I was before I learned what he was capable of. But I don't miss the life that taught me to silence her. Now, when I stand on the dock at dusk, watching the sky melt from gold to soft blue, I feel something I couldn't have imagined a year ago. Freedom that isn't born from revenge, but from release. And as the breeze carries across the water, I understand something with absolute clarity. Betrayal may have ended one chapter of my life, but it's the freedom afterward that finally let me start living. Thank you for tuning into Velvet Revenge. Please hit that hype button, and don't forget to like and subscribe to more jaw-dropping drama stories. See you soon.